Okay, so we've started talking about cellular respiration, and we found out that there are 4 steps involved. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail on the first 2 steps. Again, just to get a general understanding of some of the basic processes and understanding a little bit of chemistry, not that we're trying to turn it into a chemistry class, but just understand a little bit of the chemistry. Okay, first, if you look, notice we'll start over here on the left side of the page, and we'll start with the process of glycolysis. Now, as we said before, glycolysis is something that's occurring within the cell after glucose goes into the cells, but outside of the mitochondria. So glycolysis, glyco meaning glucose, lysis or glucose or sugar, lysis meaning splitting. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a glucose molecule, which the chemical formula, and this is one you probably ought to commit to memory. It's one of the few that you really do need to know as far as a formula. But the formula is C6H12O6, meaning 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens. Now, in our diagram here, and I put a little key up here, each carbon is shown by each of these little blue spheres. Okay? Now, but remember, even though I'm showing the blue spheres, we also have to remember that there are hydrogens and oxygens still within the molecule. It's just that it makes it kind of overcrowded if we follow everything. But so we're just going to follow the carbons, but we still need to be aware of what's happening to the hydrogens and oxygens, especially those hydrogens. Okay, anyway, we started with glucose, a 6-carbon molecule. Notice I've got 6 spheres here representing 6 carbons, and they would have, you know, hydrogens attached and oxygens attached. But in glycolysis, we're going to split this into 2. There's one and there's the other, but 2 3-carbon, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2 3-carbon molecules. It's called pyruvate, also referred to as pyruvic acid. Okay, now, this process, and I drew 2 arrows here, but there's actually several chemical processes that are going forth in this. So I just showed, you know, I could have shown 3 or 4 arrows showing that there are several steps between the time it's glucose till it gets split into pyruvate. But since we're not a biochemistry class, we won't worry as much about that. But once we do get from the 6-carbon to the 2 3-carbon products, then the pyruvate can do one of 2 things. If we're doing an anaerobic exercise where we really don't have enough oxygen to continue the exercise, then what will happen is the pyruvate will stay in the cytoplasm within the cell, but not in the nucleus, and it'll get converted through some more chemical processes into this product called lactic acid. And of course, when that builds up, that's why our muscles get sore. It's almost like alcohol fermentation, very similar process. All right, but if there is sufficient oxygen to continue whatever activity we're doing, then the pyruvate, instead of staying in the cytoplasm and turning to lactic acid, it will actually go through the 2 membranes of the mitochondria. And of course, when it does that, that's what we're going to call the preparatory reaction, also known as the transition reaction. So the 2 3-carbon molecules individually, they will both go through. There's one of the 3-carbon, there's the other 3-carbon, there's the pyruvate, and they would move through the 2 membranes inside of the mitochondria. And while they're moving through, they actually go through another chemical reaction where they lose one of the carbons, and that carbon that's lost is actually, see the carbon lost off of the 3-carbon there, 2 are still together, 1's lost. 2 are still together, 1's lost. The one that's lost is actually lost with 2 oxygens, so this is actually where carbon dioxide is coming from. So when we exhale carbon dioxide, what we're actually doing is we're actually exhaling the glucose that we took in after we split it and went through this process of cellular respiration, and especially one of the main processes that produces the most carbon dioxide is actually the process of the preparatory reaction. Now, the 2 carbon molecules that are left are actually called acetyl. And so the acetyl is what's left to go through the last step, which is the Krebs cycle. And we'll talk about that on another video. In the meantime, what else is happening here when we're splitting these? Well, because we know that we also have hydrogen and oxygen, we know that one thing that's happening is we're pulling hydrogens out, just like over here, we're pulling we're splitting these, but we're also pulling out the carbon and oxygen. Well, in both of these processes, when I'm going from here to here, I'm also pulling out hydrogens, and I'm taking NAD plus and I'm converting it into NADH. And really, it takes two hydrogens to do that. And that's some chemistry that if you want to understand, I'll talk to you about it individually later, or just let me know. But as long as you understand, we have to pull out two hydrogens to convert NAD plus into NADH. And same thing would happen when we go from pyruvate to acetyl and we pull the carbon dioxide. We're also pulling some hydrogens out, and we're converting we're converting more NAD plus NADH. So we're doing that both in this step and in this step. Okay, so that leaves us the last, well, not the last step, but the third step, which is the Krebs cycle, and we'll be doing a little video about that.